sharing some inspiration with you to get you out in the yard and get you gardening, how to transform maybe your ordinary looking garden or just your yard in general into that beautiful plant garden with rockscapes throughout. Now it's a beautiful way to touch up pathways or walkways, whatever it may be. We've got Cynthia Bee with us from Conservation Garden Park. Now you are here to lay out how to make this magic really come to life in your yard and kind of take your garden a step above. So the rockscapes, tell us a little bit about the thought and design behind that.
Well, you know, we have interesting soils here and we have a kind of a crazy climate. And so one of the great things about rock gardening is the plants that are involved are really happy growing in Utah. So right there, you're going to cut your workload by using plants that want to grow here in the first place.
Okay.
So first we're going to talk about kind of your technical rock garden, which is the, you know, the kind that you would learn about through the Native Plant Society and that. And so I'm showing you some of these little plants. Aren't they so tiny and cute?
They're adorable.
Your rock gardens, so these are the types of garden that they need really terrible soil. And they need lots of rock in the soil. So if you are that person, then this might be the thing for your yard. You can see they have lots of little tiny blooms and things, and they are used to growing in the harshest conditions.
And what are some of the, like what's this big stemmed, you know,
so this one right here is called Sea Thrift, and this is a big version, and then there's the little 1-inch tall version. You know, and a lot of the characteristics that you'll see in these technical rock gardens are, they've got these kind of these funky, cushiony, kind of plants. And so their little adaptation is that they typically bloom in the spring because they want to get their life cycle or their reproductive cycle out of the way before the temperatures get hot. So this is great for people with just really poor conditions that want to make something beautiful.
And what's the method with planting these in between rocks and with rocks? Is there, or do you just plant them in with the rocks?
Now you want to be careful in how you plant them and make sure that they, they are settled in nicely, and you always are going to water them in to make sure that that soil settles back over.
Okay.
But they do want sharp drainage. So if you've got clay soils, you're going to need to add some rock to them in order to do this particular kind of rock garden, but that's okay because there's other ways to do it.
Okay, so let's move down the line.
This is number 2. So many of us, because we have all the different slopes and things around, have retaining walls.
Yes.
And planting retaining walls can look amazing.
Or it can look horrible if it's not done properly.
So my best tip for that is we really want to look for these mounding perennials. Now they're bigger than the ones we were just looking at. You know, so here's this beautiful sandwort right here.
And how big is that going to get when planting on a retaining wall?
So it's going to fluff out to about a 2-foot diameter. So some of them are tighter and neater than others, but the idea is that we want to plant your retaining walls because you want to hold the soil that might otherwise be exposed and could slough off and destabilize your wall. So the roots of these plants are actually helping to stabilize your retaining wall in addition to doing all that. The key is that the top of the wall is going to be drier than the bottom of the wall. So if something needs a little more water, you want to put it lower.
Okay.
And if something needs less water, you want to put it more towards the top.
And so looking at these, which ones would we put at the top?
So I would do hens and chicks at the top. These plants, these fleshy leaves kind of hold some of their own water. And then I would take something more like these rock cress right here. This is a variegated leaf, and here's a regular one. And you see these blooming everywhere right now. They're the big masses of purple everywhere that look so cool.
And they really spread.
They spread beautifully, and they're nice and tight. See, one of the things that's great about it is they keep those weeds down because their foliage is so tight that it doesn't really let the seed germinate very well. So that's another reason to utilize these. And of course, we want to mix it up with some foliage. You know I'm the foliage freak, so I always want to add some things like this partridge feather that are going to give me some unique foliage contrast. And another tip too, when you're in the nursery, if it comes in a terracotta colored pot like this, then that's a water-wise plant.
Oh,
so you don't have to know everything. That's
among...
pretty much standardized from our local growers. So if it comes in from a local grower, it's going to have that terracotta pot if it's one of your more water-wise plants.
Wonderful. Okay, and your next one is how we're going to get to our garden.
That's right. So if you're going to do stepping stones or patios and you want to plant in between there, then we want to go with things that are going to keep it really low. So my all-time favorite is this elfin creeping thyme right here. You can see it's got that cushiony effect, and it fills in really nice and dense.
I almost want to lay on that.
I know.
Let that get really big in my yard and then lay on it.
That's one of the reasons we want to use this. This will take a light foot traffic without breaking apart like most plants would. If you have more shady conditions, then this is better. This is Blue Star Creeper or Creeping Veronica. You want to utilize that one. And then of course, you know, the ice plant can go in any of these situations we talked about. There is no bad place for an ice plant, at least not in Utah.
Okay.
So, and then of course, any of these kinds of things. The key is that we want to keep it really low to the ground.
Okay.
You don't want to create a trip hazard. And if you're going to plant between stepping stones, go with larger stones, because these plants are going to cover over part of that rock, And you want to make sure there's still a safe stepping space, you know, in between.
And is there a method, you said large stepping stones, but is there a method in picking the stepping stones that are going to work well with your soil and consistency?
Nope, that doesn't matter. I typically like to go with warm tones. I think it just looks more attractive to go with like the terracottas and the tans rather than like a gray. So that would kind of be my first choice. I always, of course, love our Utah flagstone as my personal favorite, but there's lots of others that work well.
And then when you're laying your stepping stones, what goes under them to help stabilize? Do you need to put any sand or gravel?
Yeah, so ideally you would kind of, if you're just going to do stepping stones, then a little bit of sand is fine underneath just to kind of so you can stabilize the rock, and that's all you need to do. If you're going to lay it more as a formal path, then you'll put some gravel base and some sand and then lay these on top. And we'll actually be teaching classes on how to build pathways at Conservation Garden Park. So you can get a whole class on it at our garden.
Okay, so where can people go out to see you guys and see the schedule of your classes?
So if you go to conservationgardenpark.org, we've got all kinds of great information and classes for the public, and you can also follow us on Facebook where we're sharing all kinds of tips all the time.
Oh, we love it. This weather is just calling for us to get out this weekend, try some of this out, pizzazz our yard a little bit. Thank you so much for being with us and bringing these great